Hi, everybody, and welcome to Netflix and Phil. I'm very excited to have a special guest with me today. It's Jack Plotnick, star of film and television, and also director, might I add. We'll get to that a little bit. Oh, yes. We'll get to that a little bit later, but how are you?
I'm wonderful. Happy holidays from my home to yours.
I love your decor. It looks great. I'm really embarrassed. I haven't put out anything I have a cavalcade of
Sometimes it's what you don't put out that really matters. And so I'm not seeing anything questionable. Everything's good back
for
there. I can
for
see.
you. We're gonna talk a little bit about Disney today, but I put out my Cruella de Vil plush.
Oh, you bet we're going to talk. You're a cast member. You were. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, just very fast. I worked for them in the 90s, which feels like I don't know how long ago. But yes, I was a cast member. But enough about me.
Hey, or what did you do?
So I was an attractions host. I actually worked at the Tiki Room in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Wow, wow, wow.
I have a
It's
story
every
about it.
dream.
I know did you ever desire to be a cast member yourself
I
or?
wanted to be an Imagineer more than anything. I was obsessed with this book called The Art of Disney that my parents gave me, and I just got real into that because anything outside of my town in Ohio felt like an impossibility. I didn't dare it. Like, I don't know. I'm sure at some point I thought, oh, that'd be cool to perform at Disney World because I'm obsessed with it.
Well, I gathered that, and that's really what prompted my chatting with you today because you've had several videos go viral on your YouTube channel that speak to Disney and Imagineering. And I don't know, should we start there? We're already off script, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, that was quick.
We already got to
This shit is derailed.
it.
It's only,
We're not even 5 minutes
where is
in.
this going to end? I am scared to see.
It's funny you mention it because I too am obsessed with Disney, and I don't know what the algorithm was doing, but I got introduced to your Disney videos and how you merge um your craft, if you will, with existing footage of the wonderful. Tell me, instead of me telling it, you tell me what happened in the last 2 years and how this has taken off.
During quarantine, I just, I live alone and I was going down a lot of YouTube wormholes and I was searching for things that brought me comfort. And I came across, I was watching anything Disney related. I mean, I would watch videos like, where's the best and worst place to eat at Disneyland? Like I just couldn't stop watching them. And I came across an old episode of The Wonderful World of Disney.
Mhm.
And I also make comedy videos all the time. That's like my hobby. And I noticed that one of the Imagineers looked a bit like me. And I thought, I'm gonna put myself into that show. And that was the first one I made was the Pirates of the Caribbean. Because I thought I've always wanted to make fun of that ride because the original version was so un-PC.
I appreciate in these what I call mashups of your characters, you're actually playing these Imagineers that were on the show, Walt's show in the 60s. And you play a cavalcade of characters from the women building the tiki birds to the gentlemen that are creating the interior of the Haunted Mansion. So go ahead and speak to that. Maybe we'll use pirates as an example. We'll start there. Is this shot in your lovely living room or is this like on a sound stage somewhere?
I love that you asked that. The whole thing is shot right there.
I love it. This is amazing to me. And you have to tell me how you do this because what you do has such great production value. And I was like, he must be going to a studio or something. So I'm sorry, I'll stop talking, but go
No,
ahead.
that thrills me. It's all just me and my green screen sitting on the floor right there.
Love it.
And yeah, an iMovie. Just iMovie. They have a green screen button. It's not advanced what I'm doing, but I love that it might appear that way. That's very exciting.
It really does. And I imagine it's perhaps how long does it take you to say edit an episode?
Well, I'm happy to say that I'm finally coming out with a new episode, and editing really takes about maybe 2 weeks.
Okay. That sounds
But I'm not working all day. Like, I mean, I work when I feel like it, which unfortunately should be more. So, but yeah, like about 2 weeks to get through it. Yeah.
well, it's amazing, and what I appreciate is that you put a lot of social commentary into these videos, and you have recurring characters. So we see the same Imagineers over and over. So to give you,
Yeah, it
uh,
became a bit of a soap opera. I didn't
it
expect it
was.
going in. Yeah.
It's very soapy, and I appreciate the consistency of the characters throughout all the episodes. You do a send up of Mary Blair, and every time I watched these episodes, I could tell you have you understand the Disney history. And I'm like, as I'm watching Mary, the first words out of her mouth as you're playing her is how shagged or drunk she got the night before. And my understanding is that Mary Blair was that. So I
Well, I didn't know that, but there's just something in her demeanor. I was
sure.
just trying to capture sort of the vibe she was playing, and it was a very like as if she'd gone on a bender the night before.
Well, and I think you hit something on the nose because I either read something or saw something somewhere, and that might be an honest portrayal if I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
yeah, I mean, back then it was thought okay to have like in the kitchen of an office building there was vodka available.
Sure.
Like did you know, I just found out there was a car built that had a little mini bar in it back in the 50s. Like drinking was as normal as smoking.
You're absolutely right. It was kind of common 50s, 60s as well up into the 70s. It wasn't like as taboo as it is today to have a flask of something at your desk or to be smoking on the job. But
Yeah.
now it's very different.
I mean, I'm obsessed with the 60s. Mad Men is probably one of my favorite, if not the most favorite TV show I've. So I do love that period, the 60s and 70s. Yeah.
I do as well. So you create these seamless videos. So I'm going to get to an actual question I wanted to ask you. Y- I assume that you have a background in improvisation. Now, so tell me about your experience.
Well, I mean, in a way, everyone has background in improv because you're doing it all the time. If you've ever been at a party, telling people a story about how your mother met your father and people are laughing, that's improv, you know? So I kind of did it as a kid in little bits here and there, but I never trained at improv. And I guess the reason I said what I just said before is I don't really think you need to train, but you can. The best, I mean, because really it just takes practice, right? But there are people that can help you to, learn some of the golden rules like yes and,
Mhm.
but I when I moved to LA, got into the sort of alternative stand-up storytelling kind of comedy world. And that's how I met some people from the Groundlings.
Sure.
And they thought I was funny. So I got to be a guest in the All Improv Thursday show they do where they will bring in guests. And I
Okay.
think I've done that show 100 times. And if they asked me to do it today, I'd be terrified. But when you're doing it all the time, it's so easy. And then and if you don't do it for a while and then you go see improv, you go, how did they do that? I still do that myself. I go, how did they do that? And it's like, you've done it. It's just, you got to be doing it all the time.
It is a muscle you have to work, and I'm fascinated to hear you say that because I studied it in LA, Groundlings and Second City. But you're right, we absolutely all of us are improvising all the time.
Aren't you? That's how I mean, yeah. I love improv, and so I love that you do it and you teach it, and it should be taught by kind people because it should only be fun. There's no reason to get yelled at in an improv class.
Well, you're absolutely right, and you yourself are a teacher of acting. Is that correct?
Well, I had a lot of anxiety as a younger person because I wasn't in control of my thoughts, and your thoughts are what cause anxiety, those
Mm.
negative feelings. And I was sort of addicted to negative thinking based on my childhood, and Anyway, so I did sort of a self-help journey where I studied and I listened to some of the great self-help gurus like Marianne Williamson and
Mhm.
people like her, Louise Hay. Anyway, without realizing it, I was applying all this self-help to my acting. And one day I realized I have something that I can offer people, which is an approach to acting based on love and not fear, where you can go to set and not be nervous and just be excited and playful. And so I started teaching basically for free. And I just teach whenever I'm free. I don't charge much. I have a lecture. I do everything I teach about acting and about controlling your thoughts. Even if you're not an actor, you can read in my free ebook. It's all free. I give this out because I just want to help people. And it's on my website, jackplotnick.com, my ebook for actors. But the first chapter, anyone can read it and learn to control your anxiety.
I'll put a link to it in the description box so people can access it. And um, I love how you uplift people in the writing and in your teaching. So I appreciate hearing this from you. So I'll make sure that our viewers or my viewers can check
Yeah,
it out.
literally, you'll never be a thing called nervous again. If all you have to do is change the way you think about it.
Well, I'm already relaxed just knowing that. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Look how easy.
Just like that. Speaking of acting, let's get into some of your credits. So I am a longtime fan of Reno 911, and I think that's probably around the time when I was first exposed to your work. And I was very curious about what is a typical shoot like on Reno 911? I mean, how does that work?
Well, first off, I'm happy to say they're just the nicest group of people. And I did a pilot with them, the one they did right before Reno, and it didn't go, but I fell in love with them. And that's how I met them. And then when Reno went, they just said, come in and bring some characters. And I brought in a few character ideas and scene ideas, and they picked 2 of them. And those were in the first season. And what it's like is it is quick. It's quick, but they put the thought into what the scenario will be that you're improvising. They've really thought it out. And not only do they know kind of what's going to happen, but you have no idea where it'll go. You just know the situation. You know the situation, but you don't know maybe how it will end. But I found out something very interesting, that they have a couple ideas of bits they could do if the scene isn't really going anywhere.
Okay.
And so I thought that was very interesting, because I didn't know that. And it's kind of nice to know that if the scene doesn't progress, they're there with an idea that can just sort of make it feel more like it went somewhere. But basically, you get only 2 takes, sometimes only 1. Well, first off, that's how good they are. Like I feel so well taken care of when I'm improvising with them, because they're really good at it. They do it all the time. And so they really help you as a guest star. But yeah, so I've loved doing it. I've done a lot of episodes. I play the guy with the mustache, and he talks like this, and he's a bit of a pervert, and you wouldn't trust him with your children or your wife.
Yeah, I did a quick Google YouTube search of Steve Marmella.
I was in their Christmas film that's about to come out, but unfortunately they had to cut. There was a section I was in, they had to cut the whole section for time.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry to hear that.
it was great to see them again and to play with them again. And the scene ended with me being sprayed down with a fire extinguisher, which I found out is actually filled with cornstarch. That's what a movie fire extinguisher is: cornstarch.
Filled with cornstarch.
Yeah.
Well, you learned it here on Netflix and Phil, ladies and gentlemen. So, okay, I want to kind of take a kind of a 360 now, because you're quite familiar with voice acting for animation. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, I lucked out, and a TV show I did for 1 season ended up the writers. Some of the writers' assistants, I think they were only assistants. Anyway, they got a cartoon on Comedy Central called Drawn Together. And because they had met me on that show, they were having a hard time finding someone to play this gay character. And they brought me in, and I got it. And I get to play Xander P. Whifflebottom on Drawn Together.
And the way he's portrayed is he's very conflicted about his sexuality, etc. So much like Reno 911, I'm curious about the process that goes into, say, creating a Drawn Together episode, or anything animated for that matter. Do you show up with an ensemble of voice actors, or are you in a room alone? How does that
It
work?
almost always is done in a room alone, and a lot of voice cartoon actors will tell you that they prefer to be in a room with a bunch of people, because once in a while they will do that, and we did that for like 2 or 3 episodes where we had all the actors together. But that's, I think, mostly because they're bored of being by themselves, because that's almost always how it happens, that you go line by line, you say each line 10 times, they keep giving you little directions and try it this way, try it that way. But they really were so excited when we could all be together. But I, as a newbie, I really liked that opportunity to get to say every line until I really nailed it. Like, I liked that.
Thank you for pulling back the curtain on that. Reno 911 and Drawn Together, we're getting all the secrets here. So we've gone from the gay character of Xander to a character who I'm very curious to know how she originated, and that is Evie Harris. And I'm quite curious as to whether she existed before the film you were in, Girls Will Be Girls, or what was the genesis of Miss Evie?
Well, oh gosh. I mean, that whole thing was just so lucky and wonderful.
Mhm.
So Evie, so Girls Will Be Girls is sort of a cult hit. It's a very sick, twisted, perverted,
Mm.
funny comedy. My friend Richard Day wrote and directed it.
Okay.
And what he did is, I had been doing this character, Evie Harris, first in a sketch show. She sort of showed up in a sort of an earlier form, but she wasn't really worked out. Then with my friend Seth Radetsky. Then my friend Dennis Hensley asked me to do his birthday party with him. And so in a rundown Mexican restaurant, we worked out like an hour-long show. And that's where we really started to figure out that she was this washed up, drunk actress, very bitter and crazy, and all those actresses like that all rolled into one, whose heydays have passed them long in the dust. But then I started performing at like benefits with Miss Coco Peru. And now Coco Peru is a drag performer who performs a one-man show all over the country.
Right.
And I was a huge fan of his, and Varla Jean Merman, another brilliant drag performer. And so it was Richard Day who said, you know, let's take all three of you, these characters that live in these separately, and I'm going to sort of fulfill out the characters and have them all be living together in Hollywood.
Love it.
And I just thought that was brilliant. And his script is, I mean, there's never been so many jokes per. I mean, every minute there's like 10 hysterical jokes. And I'm a big fan of the film, but I'm also so grateful I got to be in it. And we made it all ourselves with like almost no budget. We just created the sets in his home. His bedroom was the hospital set. It was a restaurant. It was so many different, like, but he did a great job. Like, you wouldn't know.
That's amazing to hear. And Evie has lived on beyond Girls Will Be Girls because you have brought her back to your YouTube forum, and I appreciate it. She sprung up during the pandemic as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to, it just felt like the right time to do her again. And everyone being trapped in their homes, and
Yes.
I wanted to cheer people up. And so Richard agreed to write some stuff to see what Evie was up to in quarantine.
Well, thank
And
you.
it's really funny because she doesn't know. She doesn't know she's in quarantine.
She's
I don't want to give anything away.
No, but well, again, go to YouTube to Jack's channel and look up Evie Harris.
There's a Christmas special about to premiere this week, and it's a Paul Lynde Christmas. And they filmed it as if it takes place in the actual 70s. And Bruce Valanche, the very famous writer of the original Paul Lynde Halloween special, he wrote this.
That's
For
amazing.
the nation's #1 Paul Lynde impersonator. He's so good. No one else is allowed to do Paul Lynde because he's the only person who the family has allowed to play Paul Lynde on stage in any kind of professional manner.
I had no idea.
So Evie is his first guest that shows up at his house. And of course, she can't remember any of her lyrics. So that's about to come out. And then next year, I hope to be, I finally, Richard wrote a one-woman show for Evie. So I hope to get that up, and we'll start in LA and see how it goes.
Well, wishing you success with that, you and Evie, of course. So you mentioned the 70s. So if it's okay, I kind of want to jump to that. you use that to imbue the aesthetic of the feature that you directed called Space Station 76, and you worked with an ensemble cast, and I love the aesthetic. I grew up in the 70s, so everything I was seeing visually, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is a flood of memories coming back to me." So,
That's nice.
I'm
Yeah.
curious how, the idea came about, and what was it like directing a full feature?
Well, it was created through improvisation with some of my closest friends, super talented people, and then I kind of fleshed it out and turned it into a feature film. I wanted to find a way to sort of creatively express what it felt like to grow up in the suburbs in the 70s, and so I thought it takes place in the future as we had imagined it in the 70s.
Right.
It's as if people in the 1970s were in space living on this lonely space station in the middle of nowhere and using that as an allegory for what it felt like to be sort of trapped out in the suburbs and always wondering if you're missing something. You know, I'm kind of speaking to my parents' experience and sort of all the isolation and depression and that can come of being told, well, the future is going to be bright and beautiful and in this you're going to live in the stars, but then when you get there, kind of the reality of it isn't always that. But so it's retrofuturism. It's kind of looks like a cross between Logan's Run, 2001: A Space Odyssey, or Space 1999, which I'm obsessed with retrofuturism, and it just is. So the cast is sort of insane. Like I even understand how I got them. I mean, Patrick Wilson plays the closeted alcoholic captain of the ship, and he's hysterical and heartbreaking. Liv Tyler, Matt Bomer, Jerry O'Connell, and they're all, I mean, there wasn't much I had to do, Phil, to direct them because they're brilliant and they all loved the tone of the script and they all gave up some of their time to do this little independent film. And I'm just, pinch me. It was an incredible experience.
Well, and thank you for it, because I'm sure it also had a lot to do with you shepherding them and creating an environment that was very comfortable for them. And I appreciated all the elements of it. And it works. It's kind of like your Disney mashup with the Imagineering and the wonderful world of Disney. You're taking elements from the past and the future and just kind of creating this great explosion of art, if you will.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, it was in a very immersive set. We built the interiors on a soundstage and yeah, it was fun. I was heartbroken when we had to tear the sets down because I basically just wanted to move in.
Sure.
And live in that capsule.
When I researched her, someone that I kind of gasped, and I was like, I had no idea.
You gasped?
You
gasped. Until I
gasped.
was in the van with her going to set.